Well, Robert, I mean, I will admit to your audience that before Bitcoin, I really lived in a place of fear. I was fearful that I'll just say it, like I've always had the fear, or for a long time had the fear that I will wind up living under a bridge. I feel like nothing is secure. Like I feel like we are all one step away from being homeless, right? I feel so lucky to be here. I feel so lucky to be an American. And it is just pure effing luck that I was born here and I had parents and I got to go to college or got to live in a house or right? That is luck. And so that gratitude for my luck, it's like it's humbling, and it really makes me want to project this, like I feel like I'm here to serve other people. I feel like I was put here on earth to serve others. And I try to approach my work I do approach my work that way. I want to interact with folks and figure out how I help them win.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why you work for Bitcoin.
And that's why I work for Bitcoin. And when you have Bitcoin, when you figure it out, and when you begin to store your energy in Bitcoin, right? And you can use the word wealth, but really wealth is just energy. When you begin to store your energy in Bitcoin, I mean, that feeling of I'm going to live under a bridge, it's gone.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the What is Money Show. I am thrilled to have you here joining me on my mission to help shine light on the corruption of money. Now, if this is your first time listening to the What is Money Show, I strongly recommend that you go back to episodes 1 through 9 first, which lays a lot of the groundwork for many of the concepts that we explore on the show. These first 9 episodes are my series with Michael Saylor, and thousands of people have told me that this is the best podcast series they've ever heard, hands down, and that it was instrumental to their understanding of money and Bitcoin. So if you're looking to start a deep dive into the nature of money, I don't think there's any place better that you can start other than episode 1 of this show. Now, a little bit about this show and how it makes money. The What is Money Show is 100% sponsor based. So all of our revenues are derived from direct sponsorships. And I strive to be very selective about the sponsors that I work with, specifically only using sponsors that I use personally, and also choosing sponsors that have values which are well aligned to the values expressed on this show, such as freedom, education, self-sovereignty, etc. So what I'm going to do now is a few ad reads right at the top of the show, and then I'll do a few more ad reads in the middle. And I hope you'll take the time to listen to them, as again, these are hand-selected sponsors, and I think you'll like what they have to offer.
Today's podcast is brought to you by In Wolf's Clothing. Wolf is the world's first startup accelerator program focused exclusively on the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times per year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what is possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that help fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. So go to wolfnyc.com today to apply for the program or learn more. Again, that is wolfnyc.com.
Lisa Hough, welcome to the What is Money Show.
Thank you, Robert Breedlove. Happy to be on the What is Money Show.
It's great to have you here.
I'm a fan.
Thank you so much. We met originally in, was it?
LA.
Pacific Bitcoin, right?
Pacific Bitcoin.
That's right.
Fantastic event.
That was a very fun moment. I think it was your daughter was with you.
She was with me.
And we had an impromptu master's lecture from Mr. Saylor.
Yes.
I think she asked him some question and he elaborated for he had a small crowd gathered to hear him elaborate on the answer.
So what happened was Terrence Yang at Swan, Ella and I were standing out listening to something, incredible speakers. And Terrence came up and said, hey, would you guys like to step backstage for a minute? I'll show you around. And we went backstage and there was really no one there. Mm-hmm. And then Michael sort of drifted in. And I can't remember if you were with him or you guys sort of drifted in at the same time.
I was drifting in around the same time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Eric Kaysen was around,
Yeah.
and I think Tomer drifted over.
Yeah.
So we meet Michael, and I said, oh, and by the way, Ella is proposing a Bitcoin-focused major in independent study at her college. And that's when
Yeah.
the fire just started coming out.
Yes.
Let me tell you how you do it.
Yeah.
And if you remember, it was like this 30-minute, and it was 30 minutes because one panel started, those guys went on stage,
Yeah.
they did their spiel, they came back, and we were all still standing there.
Yeah.
And he was just like spitting out all this wisdom, right?
Yes.
It's a monetary engineering program. You need to pitch it this way. This
Yes.
is what needs to be included. I mean, it was incredible. So generous.
Yeah, and every time I'm around Mr. Saylor, it seems to be like that. The guy's just a fountain of wisdom, new ideas. It's incredible.
Well, he was so kind,
Yeah.
right? To look at a college student and say, may I offer some suggestions or thoughts?
Yeah.
I mean, she's really taken that, and so she's facing a battle right now. Not a battle, but she's facing a lot of opposition at her school,
Right.
an Ivy League school. Not to dox Cornell, but I mean, they told her it was a very narrow focus.
Right.
Narrow. Bitcoin.
Seems to be the typical attitude from academia towards Bitcoin, right? It's the same thing Lowry's dealing with and presenting his thesis.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's a little bit more telling, actually, that there's such a refusal to look at this thing. I think it's more telling about academia.
I guess, but you're looking into the eyes of someone, right, Ella, who sees something, and if they can't see her vision with her, or at least support her vision, then why offer an independent study, right?
Right.
They offer independent studies. They actually really encourage independent studies, but on things that are so esoteric
too
or
independent.
removed, but not too independent. Maybe not as controversial. It's, I don't know, if you look at some of these Ivy League schools, where AI was created, or this was created, or that was created, like that idea had to be birthed somewhere.
Sure.
Right. And it probably was birthed with a student, not with a faculty. I mean, I don't know, but that would be my guess, right? Innovation has to come from someone who allowed themselves to have the thought.
Right. And it's people pursuing these interests that it's what gives you the motivation to pursue it so hard, right? So if you try to, I guess, prevent students from doing that, it seems very short-sighted and self-defeating in my estimation. But it's not, it can't be a coincidence that academia, a lot of Ivy League, but I think almost across the board has been resistant to the idea of Bitcoin, no matter what it is. Like whatever you're talking, Bitcoin's a lot of funds to a lot of people, but no matter which aspect is being approached, academia seems to push it away. I don't know what that means exactly, but certainly is telling in my estimation.
So you and I see that. It's really, to me, hopeful that there are students that see it. I mean, Ella's not the only one. Certainly around the country, there's a fantastic professor at Texas A&M, and his classes are full. There are classes elsewhere, and their classes are full. But for Ella specifically, it's, Mom, I can't go sit in an economics class.
Right.
Like, I already know the answer, right? Like, I just, it's all about how am I going to spend my own energy, right? Our energy is valuable, and why go waste it on something that we know is broken?
Yes.
Right? It's like studying a medical cure where we've already had an advance in another field. Why are we going to study bloodletting when we know that's not the answer?
Right. It's a great point. We should tell the audio listeners we're sitting here live in person in Jackson Hole. We're here for the Bitcoin Ski Summit. We're having a real live fireside chat. There's an actual fire with a lot of large logs burning beside us. So if you hear any snap, crackle, or pop, that's what that is. And we should jump into your background a little bit.
Sure.
So you are currently the head of business development at LevelField.
Yes.
And your background is in energy markets, also consumer goods, it looks like. So maybe you could just give us a quick background on yourself and how you got into this space and how you got into Bitcoin.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I work with LevelField Financial. I joined them in July. Previous to that, I was with Unchained Capital, some of our favorite folks. And really, I'm going to get in trouble with our compliance gentlemen. I feel like I work for Bitcoin. And my goal is to promote adoption of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And at LevelField, we aim to level the playing field, allow people to access digital assets, secure digital assets, and have financial services around digital assets. And I'm not crazy about the term digital assets, but the regulators prefer it. That I guess that's what they are. To me, that means it's a photo on my phone.
Yeah.
I actually redid my estate plan because, and by the way, everybody should do their estate plan because a typical estate plan does not cover what we know as something that is secured by, that's on the blockchain, that's cryptographic, that's, it doesn't discuss Bitcoin. But side note, so we really aim to be the bridge. And so that adoption, when I was at Unchained, what I learned is that while I believe and you believe that securing your own private keys is not a difficult thing to undertake, many people, when you say to them, all right, in order to buy and secure your Bitcoin safely, you need to, secure your own private keys. It's like instantly they're afraid and they back away.
Yeah.
I think as time goes on, people will realize that those 12 words should not be intimidating.
Right.
It's fewer words than the Lord's Prayer.
Right. Yeah.
It's fewer words than the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes. Yeah.
If your life depended on it, you could memorize 12 words, which I would say that all of our lives depend on how we secure our financial resources, right? How we secure our future, how we secure our energy for the future.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So working at Unchained, I loved it, loved them, do love them, still have open lines of communication with the whole team. But LevelField, our custody solution is an IBM solution that was developed by IBM and the Department of Defense. It is how top national secrets are secured. And when you secure your Bitcoin in our deep cold storage, we will give you an address on the blockchain so that you can go verify that your asset is sitting there.
Gotcha.
Right. So in light of the recent debacle with some of the folks in our space, Sam, they had like $1 million of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they had sold, I don't know, 80 million, 800 million, I forget what the number is, but they had no Bitcoin essentially.
Right.
So if you custody with us, you can go look at your Bitcoin.
That's good.
Yeah. So if that helps people take the next step, to me, that's an endeavor worth taking. I think eventually everybody holds their own keys. It's not hard. And we will help you. We will encourage you. I mean, certainly you can buy your Bitcoin with us and secure it yourself. Great.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's the whole with great power comes great responsibility thing that it's intimidating for people. And I've, like Unchained, these other places where you can buy Bitcoin, secure it, but you can also withdraw it. That seems to be kind of a necessary step in a lot of people's Bitcoin journey. Not everyone's ready to just jump in with both feet and hold their own keys. But to your point, you can't really realize the value proposition of Bitcoin without holding your own keys. So we have to get people there. And I like that you say you work for Bitcoin, because that's, as I was telling you offline, that's something I've often also said. It's a nice, clarifying way to look at your professional life. Like if a deal is not serving the purpose of orange pilling people, for me, it's like it doesn't make sense. Like even if it makes dollars, it doesn't make sense, so to speak. So it's interesting you say that. So you said you have Enron, Southern Company, Procter & Gamble.
No Procter & Gamble.
Oh, sorry, PG&E.
Oh, Pacific Gas and Electric.
Sorry about that. That's on me. And you said I didn't even know what this meant, but a 3 trillion cubic feet salt dome storage.
Yes. Well, I'll just paint the picture.
Okay, please.
Yeah. So I graduated from college with a degree in biology. And this was like back in the day when you took an envelope, an 8.5 by 11 envelope, you know, you printed off your resume, you mailed it in. So I answered an ad in the Houston Chronicle for a position at, which was Solomon Brothers, right? It just said it didn't say the name, but so I mail it into this PO box. It turns out it's Solomon Brothers. I get hired. They hire 2 people at the same time. And I become an analyst on their heavy fuels desk. So in Houston, the division of Solomon that I worked for was Fibro Energy. So it was this enormous, impressive, it was larger than a football field, trading floor. So just rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of desks. And I was instantly hooked, right? If you're an adrenaline junkie, then you love a trading floor, right? Super dynamic. You have to be able to make a decision quickly. You have to be able to take a lot of information and know where to look for information that other people don't have. It's really, commodity trading is information gathering. And I think that's why I feel very frustrated in the crypto space when people tell me that they trade crypto, because what the image that pops into my mind is the E-Trade baby commercial where the kid is like, buy, sell, right? Like, that's not information gathering. That's not risk management.
Right.
Commodity traders are risk managers.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I spent a career in the commodity trading space, and I thought it was the greatest career of all time. I thought it was the most exciting. The work was spectacular. The challenge was spectacular. You know, you wake up and you're like addicted to what the weather says, because just a degree or 2 shift in the weather changes demand all over the world, like all over the US. And so when you're arbitraging storage, the majority of storage is in the Gulf Coast, right? So gas gets produced, comes in off the Gulf, or it's produced somewhere along the Gulf Coast, oil and gas. Those storage facilities are typically, sitting somewhere in Texas or Louisiana. So you're basically looking for arbitrage opportunities to move from, so you have pipeline capacity that you've often rented. So pipeline capacity trades like airplane seats, right? You're reserving space on a pipeline so that you can move a fuel.
Right.
And the end source is your power generation site. And so like at PG&E, we had 4,500 megawatts on the East Coast. And a lot of actually, I think all of those assets were in highly, highly constrained pipeline areas. So pipelines along the Gulf Coast, Houston Ship Channel, Henry Hub, those are very big pipelines. When you get up into the upper East Coast, New York, Pennsylvania, you're on these little tiny, the pipeline that I traded, I traded all of them, but one of them that we really made a market in because we had those power generation assets and it allowed us to make markets was Algonquin. And they called that and Transco Zone 6, which was up in New York. I mean, those were like widowmaker pipelines because you're at the mercy of whoever has assets, right? So if you've miscalculated load or if the weather shifts, then you really are facing, you're at the mercy of who you know in the industry that you can call and go, hey, so I'm 5,000 a day short here. Can I have, right? And so we were in that position of really being market makers in these areas, which was fun, right? And then that's commodity trading, really. I mean, commodity trading is not betting whether the number goes higher or lower, right? It's not about a long or a short. It's information gathering and it's utilization of assets, utilization of hard assets.
Right. So true, like risk management, right? Your skin is in the game, and if you make a wrong call, you suffer.
Yeah, the goal is just to make more good decisions than bad decisions.
Yes. Makes sense.
Right. And really remove your ego.
Yeah. Which is, yes.
Right. Which is like when you think about commodity traders and ego, you're like, oh, that's hard.
You hear that a lot in like poker, traders because it's the emotions or the over conviction in your own model that can blind you to the realities of the world. And so it seems to be that humility is like a key ingredient to successful trading, gambling, all these other things.
Well, I think that's right. And, probably the most famous natural gas trader of all time, John Arnold, he just like went down and he didn't go down. I mean, he left at this like the pinnacle of glory because he got in a real battle with a counterparty. And when you looked at those two counterparties, I won't say the other one's name, but when you look at those two counterparties, John was super humble always and quiet. And you could tell he was just thinking. And this other counterparty was this huge personality, full of ego and testosterone and all of these things. And that eventually like blew him up to the tune of, I think, like almost $1 billion.
Wow.
So a funny story. And then I'm sorry, I'm sort of sidetracking you, but when I first started at Enron, so I left Solomon Brothers, I left Fibro, which was the division of Solomon, and went to Enron. And when I got there, I was on the risk management desk. And my very first job, very first day, they take me over to the traders' desks because the risk managers are basically entering the trades into the system and producing P&L and looking at value at risk and, meeting with, the heavy duty risk guys, right? Just to make sure that all of the corporate risk is in line, which is funny now thinking back to Enron. But so they take me over to introduce me to the Houston Ship Channel traders. There are two of them. And it was a gentleman named Jim Schwimmer. He was the senior trader. Right. So this is physical gas trading on the Houston Ship Channel. And John Arnold was the junior trader. And if you're not in the gas world, this probably doesn't mean anything to you. But I mean, he is a self-made, I know he's a billionaire. Humble then, humble today, right? It's just been, anyway, it was great. It was a phenomenal career. And I never thought I'd have another like it.
Yeah. And now you've come into Bitcoin. I had Jeff Booth in this seat just yesterday, and he was talking about the same thing, like the importance of humility and how Bitcoin seems to be like an ego destroyer. His firm is Ego Death Capital.
I know. I had dinner with he and Andy last night.
Yeah.
And Jeff's wife, Kelly.
I guess that's another positive about Bitcoin is that it seems to have this, at least puts people's ego in check, right? Everyone that's tried to co-opt Bitcoin or game it or make the new Bitcoin or whatever, they get utterly humbled. So, you talk about Bitcoin mining as a tool for molecule monetization.
Yes.
I think that's a term you said you coined throughout the energy supply chain. Can you expand upon that? What do you mean by molecule monetization?
Yeah, sure. So you've got energy companies that, have significant infrastructure investment, deploying capital, really trying to figure out how to most effectively either bring molecules out of the ground, move molecules. And so what we often hear is the talk about how Bitcoin miners can help with flare gas mitigation. And I think it's a hugely interesting piece of what's happening in our ecosystem. And when we think of flared gas, we often think about West Texas, and you see photos and, they have this pipe coming out of the ground and then there's this flare up here. And I've gotten to be close with a lot of the Bitcoin miners. They're mostly a lot of them are in Houston. A lot of them have been in the oil business. They're very humble. They're a humble group of guys. They're hardworking. Many of them have worked offshore on rigs or in the field, right? They're definitely not crypto people. And one of the teams that I've gotten to be close with is the Giga Energy team. And when I first was getting to know them, they're talking about flared gas and this work that they're doing with Bitcoin miners. So they're basically going out into the field, they're dropping shipping containers down. They're putting refurbished Caterpillar generators. Like they source them all over the U.S., probably all over the world. But I just was at their workshop a week ago, and they bought two 40-year-old generators out of a hospital in Chicago. And Giga is based in Buna, Texas, right? So kind of like heart of America, oilfield service. And that's because that's where the great mechanics are for these machines. And so anyway, so you would take a generator, a box, you'd take the computers, right, the ASICs, and you would take that flared gas, convert the flared gas into electricity, you mine Bitcoin. What I've really come to understand, though, is that a company like Giga has the potential not really to be a Bitcoin miner, right? They're a power generator that's mining Bitcoin, right? They can go anywhere in the world where there's a power source that's cheap and create power for people. And there are there are so many opportunities around the world where there's untapped power or where there's flared gas.
Yeah.
I know of a couple of projects that are happening in pristine parts of the world where you would not even, if I said the name of where this was, you would not in your wildest dreams think that there's flaring happening. But there's, they're oil-rich countries, and oil is very easy to transport. You can build pipelines. It can, go up elevation and go down elevation. Gas is much harder to transport, right? You have to pressurize a pipeline.
Gotcha.
And so if you have elevation changes or many other geographical challenges, that becomes hard.
Right.
So a company like Giga can come in and, again, drop Bitcoin miners down, and instead of that sovereign flaring gas, right, they can put that money in their pocket, or at least eliminate that flare, right? So each project, and I imagine this is the same with all Bitcoin miners, they're looking at each project and talking to their counterparty, the power, the molecule owner, and constructing a deal that's beneficial.
Yeah.
And it allows everybody to win, right? It takes bad stuff out of the air.
Right.
The sovereign or the molecule owner wins.
They make more money.
Right. And the Bitcoin miners win.
Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, iCoin Technology. iCoin has just released a sleek new hardware wallet. Looks like a mini iPhone, a little touch screen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, no GPS. It's a strictly physically cold hardware wallet. Like I said, it's got a high-res 3-inch touch screen. It's got a camera for air gapping the wallet. It's got optional Bluetooth compatibility. And it's really a brand new UI, UX experience for a hardware wallet, making it very accessible, easy to use, not intimidating. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like iCoin Wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. Go to iCointechnology.com today and use promo code Bitcoin23 for 30% off of this new sleek hardware wallet. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Ledn. Ledn lets you do more with your digital assets. For instance, Ledn offers a B2X loan product that lets you leverage your existing Bitcoin to buy even more Bitcoin. Or you can also get traditional Bitcoin collateralized US dollar loans through Ledn as well. Ledn also offers both Bitcoin and USDC denominated savings accounts, letting you generate yield on your digital assets. Recently, Ledn has launched a Bitcoin mortgage product as well that lets you use Bitcoin to buy a home or finance one that you already own. So go to ledn.io, that's LEDN.io today to sign up.
How long is it going to take for energy producers to realize how much money they're leaving on the table by ignoring Bitcoin mining?
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time, probably the bulk of my time, meeting with energy teams. And prior to working at Unchained, I had a consulting business, just teaching Bitcoin. And most of I've lived in Houston my whole life. I was in the energy business. It's just kind of my friend group, right? And they're very curious about Bitcoin. and they're figuring it out. And in the last month, I've met with the largest independent producer in the Gulf of Mexico, right? So they've got rigs all over the Gulf. Well, they have more gas than they can use on the rig, and they flare it.
And just for the audience, that quite literally means they're burning the energy produced for nothing, right? It's just flaring it off.
They just lit money on fire.
Lit money on fire. And by plugging a Bitcoin miner there, you could turn that burned money into money in your pocket.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So they're beginning to realize that it's another commodity.
Yeah.
Right. It's that hash rate, that Bitcoin, right? That's the commodity.
Yeah.
And these guys are commodity experts, and they're infrastructure experts. And, no matter what picture you paint of the roughnecks that work on those rigs, those people are hardworking, and they are smart, and they are technically capable.
Yeah.
And they are figuring it out. So that's just one example, right? So it's the offshore guys.
Is that so that's the hang up then, is the realization that Bitcoin is another commodity? Because it seems like I've talked to way less people in this space than you, but the few that I have just tend to conflate FTX with Bitcoin. It's like, oh, well, if FTX went away, how do I know Bitcoin's not going to go away? And you're just like, as a Bitcoiner, you're banging your head against the wall. Is that the problem? They don't understand, or it's dawning on them that Bitcoin is something different than all of the other crypto space, crypto exchanges, et cetera?
I think that's wholly the problem.
Yeah.
Right. They have not. I think step one, Robert, with explaining Bitcoin to someone is that someone needs to, and I always ask people, please agree with me that Bitcoin is knowable. Right. I feel very firmly that if I can understand Bitcoin, anyone can understand Bitcoin.
Yes.
Right. Like, I joke that my grades weren't great in college, yet I got out and have had a just banger of a life and banger of a career.
Yeah.
Because I've found things that are hyper interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like if people will just dig into Bitcoin, there's so many aspects to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, find your way in, because this is the most hopeful, exciting thing that you can possibly think about. Everyone in the Bitcoin space would agree.
Yes.
Right. And like, there's room for more. Come into the space. So yeah. So I think people don't allow themselves to know about it. They do conflate it with my least favorite C word, crypto. And then, you and I were talking before, another issue that I see is, and this is specific to some other energy executives who are slowly coming around. Let's be honest, like, those teams are leaders, right? And they are winners, and they are high achievers. And there's a lot of research that shows that if you didn't first discover something, then you won't adopt it. Right? A first adopter wants to be a first adopter. There's a really interesting study at MIT. I think the professor's name was Christian Castellani. And it goes into that if you first don't find something, if someone else finds something and shows it to you.
So that's ego.
It's totally ego.
Yeah.
But ego aside, from a power producer's point of view, right? So there's a very large power producer that sits in Houston. These guys, so they're using natural gas to generate power, and it's being sent to ERCOT, the Texas grid that everybody's heard so much about. That's actually so brittle and frail that Bitcoin is helping fix. Bitcoin will help fortify that system.
Yeah.
But these power producers pay ERCOT to take power some of the time, a non-0% of the time.
Now that is especially mind-blowing to me, that there are times when energy producers are paying counterparties to sell their power to them.
Right.
So it's like a negative price almost.
Yes. Well, it's more cost effective for them to do that than for them to shut off, right? For them to shut down.
Right.
So whether you're a natural gas power plant.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just more cost efficient for you to just pay ERCOT, because I don't know today what that is.
Right.
It's 2% or 4% of the time, but it's a non-0% of the time.
Right.
And it's just better. Same thing with
And Bitcoin could be buying that instead.
well, they should be.
Yeah.
Right. Like either drop miners on site. You definitely, if you run a power plant, you definitely have people that are technically skilled and can figure out how to plug these computers in. I mean, I'm figuring out how to plug one in myself, so it clearly can't be hard. But yeah, I mean, or you get to a firm that's like Entergy, right? A utility that has all these wind turbines. Well, again, I mean, there's times when the grid can't take their generation. And so it from a maintenance perspective, they're much better off. In fact, this has been researched. I'm in touch with a guy, young guy who doesn't work in Bitcoin, who wants to come work in Bitcoin. And he did a really academic study on the effect Bitcoin mining could have on wind turbine efficiency. Because turning them off and turning them back on, it's like a few years ago, I was like, I guess running a bunch of errands or something in my car, and I had to replace my battery after a year. And my service advisor, super great guy, was like, yeah, because you start and stop all day long, and that's way more wear on your battery than if you just drive all day long.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same with these turbines.
Right.
So, don't turn your turbine off, mine Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, it's the starting and stopping cost. These are like frictional costs on the total operating model. And so Bitcoin just lets you never need to curtail, maybe not never, but you can curtail or turn off a lot less often if you just sell those molecules into the Bitcoin network.
Right. You're monetizing every molecule.
Yeah, it's quite the no-brainer. That's why I'm so surprised it's taken energy producers this long, but I guess it is just it's kind of this basic Bitcoin education piece that's just not there yet, right? Bitcoin's new enough to where people still conflate it with crypto exchanges and other things that clearly aren't Bitcoin.
Okay. So again, back to the MIT study, there are folks running these energy companies, these leaders, these innovators, these winners, right? Who may have been told about Bitcoin back in 2011 or 2012. In fact, I know they were. And I know there's an instance where, one of their kind of social groups, somebody came into the social group and said, 2011, look, I don't even know what this is, but we all need to buy $1,000 of it. Everybody in here, we should all just buy $1,000 Bitcoin in 2011. And no one did, not even the guy that said everybody should buy $1,000 Bitcoin. Right. So again, if you're not an early adopter and you have this leader, winner, innovator mentality, ego is really a problem. Like you're getting in your own way.
That is sounds like the source of, at least a source of Bitcoin derangement syndrome.
Yeah, I heard that for the first time this week.
Yeah, if people don't get it on their own terms, maybe, then they just kind of refuse to get it at all.
Right.
But the opportunity cost of that, I would argue, egoic behavior is compounding, obviously, as Bitcoin number go up. So I guess all of this grounds out in that very popular saying now that everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve.
Yeah. And if I can just give you one more example, and I thank you very much for having me, because I really hope that we'll reach some energy firms.
Yeah.
And I hope that this resonates with folks and they can take it back and really think about it. As Bitcoin miners, these guys are already doing this, but the broader ecosystem in energy, if we think about, so when natural gas moves, right? So natural gas comes out of the ground with oil, and often it has to be cleaned up, right? So you want to have it as clean as possible, as dry as possible. So they separate the liquids. So those processing plants or gathering plants are also places where Bitcoin could be used as a tool, because they also have, like any plant, they have planned and unplanned maintenance. And when they have planned and unplanned maintenance and there's gas coming into their facility, they go back to the molecule owner and they say, you know, we're going to be shut down for today or tomorrow or for 2 weeks or in 2 weeks. So that molecule owner has the ability, in some cases, to divert to a different pipeline, right? To divert to a different place, or maybe they can store it. But sometimes they can't. So what happens is they end up shutting production in. Well, what if those processing or gathering plants had Bitcoin miners on site, and Bitcoin mining was just used as a tool so that the operation could keep running? You can repair your plant over here, and then the gas will keep flowing, and we'll mine Bitcoin. And then, you know, we'll look at the economics again. I mean, when Bitcoin goes to $250,000, I'm so excited. It's going to be just mind-blowing to watch the economics at play as the price goes higher.
So that's another good point, because I've thought about this a lot, how much the price plays into the psychology of Bitcoin adoption. It seems to me like the reputation of Bitcoin changed significantly when it broke $1,000. It changed significantly again at $10,000. And I can't help but think, you know, that these numbers are arbitrary. Obviously, they're orders of magnitude, but there's something about humans, right? When you move from 7 figures to 8 figures or 9 figures, like we have this reaction to it. So I'm curious if when we break $100,000 Bitcoin price, what type of psychological reaction we're going to see across the world. It seems to me people that have been resistant to it are going to start to capitulate at that point. You're telling me one of these things is worth $100,000 each. Hopefully people would set aside any of their bias against Bitcoin at that point and just start to take it seriously. It sounds silly, like that would be the thing, but number go up is the thing that drew basically everyone in, including myself. I mean, I know very few people that weren't drawn in by number go up, right? The price is the instrument that commands the most attention in the world. And the Bitcoin price has certainly proven that. What do you think about the psychological implications of the Bitcoin price?
Yeah, so when I first started looking at Bitcoin, I guess in 2018, I was really trying to tap my data sources, right? So I was reaching out to like friends that were wealth managers, like I guess looking for someone else to show me the way. And what I found out is that nobody really knew anything. And I remember one wealth manager in particular, I said, hey, Bob, do you know anything about Bitcoin? Are you buying Bitcoin for your clients? And I mean, he has like super mega high net worth clients. And he laughed at me. He was like, Lisa, ha, ha, ha. I try not to lose money for my clients. Right. And I'm not quite sure what the price was. I think it was like 17,000. I remember it like being in the mid-teens.
Yeah.
And then it hit 35,000 and he called me and he was like, can we have lunch? Can we talk about Bitcoin? Same exact phenomenon when Bitcoin went to 64,000 or 69,000. I had more people coming out of the woodwork.
Oh yeah.
Can we talk about Bitcoin again?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm myself, right? Like I bought plenty of Bitcoin in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I'm actually super proud of it because I haven't sold it.
Yeah.
And I mean, price means nothing to me.
Yeah.
It's a signal to me that the world is waking up.
Yeah.
Right. Volatility is not risk.
Right.
And if we look back, I mean, if you really look back at the numbers and the history of Bitcoin, a 1% allocation to Bitcoin since the beginning of Bitcoin, 99% in cash, 1% in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That combination would have outperformed the best performing fund.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a weird time in history where such a conservative portfolio construction, like literally all cash, right? If you consider Bitcoin to be cash, which I do, it's 100% cash portfolios outperforming all of these exotic investment strategies.
Right. And all these guys that or women that have Ivy League degrees and have studied this and their resume is like hugely impressive. And it's like, guys, it just doesn't really have to be this hard.
It has no relevance under this paradigm though, right? All your credentials, your education, like unless you're an Austrian economic professor, I don't think there's a lot of relevance to understanding Bitcoin. You just have to do the work. Maybe that's kind of the ironic thing is there is a proof of work necessary to glean the significance of Bitcoin. But many people have this like semi-arrogant, egoic attitude towards it that they don't even want to look at it or think about it. They don't want to lose money for their clients, as Bob said. And so they never start to do the work. To even start to look at Bitcoin, the number 100 hours is thrown around. Like you need to, I don't know, read about it or listen to podcasts for 100 hours before you start to understand it. I mean, that's a big chunk of time.
Is it though?
I mean,
so Robert, there are 6 seasons of The Crown, and they're like an hour long or an hour and 20 minutes each. And then there's 12 I think there were 20 in the first, like I've watched it. I love that show. I really don't watch TV, but when Ella comes home, we love to like just sit on the sofa and get covered up in blankets and binge stuff like that. We make a list actually. She doesn't watch any TV either. So we make a list, whatever. But like think of the amount of time we waste.
Of course.
Right. And I think what Bitcoin shows us all is that, our time is finite and our thought process is finite. We know that every thought we have impacts us. So I kind of had a pivotal moment in my life in 2013 where I had broken my femur and was really struggling and in a lot of pain and just a lot of stuff happening in my life. Like this point of, I need to do something different on the other side of my leg healing. And I ran across a podcast. There's a woman named Lisa B. Marshall, and she mentions a study that was done over the number of good things in your day versus bad things in your day. And basically it said, okay, so every person has, forget what the number is, 200 interactions a day, right? So today I woke up at the hotel. We called down for room service and said, would you please, could we have coffee or whatever? And the guy came, right? So that's an interaction. Getting out of the taxi to come here, right? That's an interaction, right? So all of these interactions that we have during the day, we need 7 out of 11 of those to be positive for us to get in bed at night and go, wow, that was a great day. But here's the thing. It's your choice whether an interaction is a good interaction or a bad interaction.
Right.
So think about when you're driving, and I live in Houston, and like now everybody from California has moved to Texas and our traffic is just unbelievable.
Same in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I'm on the highway and someone cuts me off or someone is trying to cut me off, my natural reaction now is slow down and like wave them in, right? Because I know that I win if I do that. Like that goes in my good column.
Right.
It has completely changed my perception of how I'm willing to spend my time and my energy.
That's so good.
I tune out people that are, I'm not negative towards people that are negative.
Yes.
But as Jeff Booth said last night, like those are data points. When people say something that you disagree with or that gets you kind of riled up, like it's just a data point. We don't need to allow ourselves to be consumed with something someone puts before us.
Right.
It's absolutely a choice. And so I believe that Bitcoin has really allowed many of us, all of us that work or that study or love Bitcoin to consider these broader implications of energy usage.
Yeah.
Right? Like from our own perspective, as well as, the energy that we think of when we flip on the light.
Yeah. No, that is beautifully said. Now, it was coming up for me. Jeff was coming up for me as you were saying that too, because we had talked about a similar topic yesterday where like, how do you engage on Twitter without getting activated in these arguments? And he described that kind of Bruce Lee strategy where you're just like letting these things pass through you. You can observe them as a data point, even if you feel like the anger is rising up inside of you, like that's a data point too. And something about Bitcoin enabling us to value our time and energy in a way we never could before. Like maybe that's contributing to the humility of Bitcoiners. It's like you can just, why would I get upset about this thing? Right. So I can go to bed tonight peacefully if I just wave the guy in on the road. It's fascinating, this continuum between technology and like human attitude. incentives, I guess, reshaping us. It's very fascinating to me.
Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is a Bitcoin-enabled alternative to legacy health insurance. Now let's face it, legacy health insurance is an absolute scam. Nobody can explain this better than the legendary comedian Chris Rock.
Insurance. You got to have some insurance. You got to. There's an insurance. They shouldn't even call it insurance. They should just call it in case shit. Like, I give a company some money in case shit happens. Now, if shit don't happen, shouldn't I get my money back?
So with CrowdHealth, instead of just paying premiums that you'll never see again, you can hold part of this pool of savings in dollars and in Bitcoin through CrowdHealth. And when you have a health event, you can draw against this pool of communal savings. So go to joincrowdhealth.com/breedlove to learn more or sign up. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Wasabi Wallet. Wasabi lets you use Bitcoin privately while still maintaining full control over your money. Specifically, Wasabi Wallet is an open source, non-custodial wallet with privacy built in by default. By using Wasabi, you're effectively putting the private back in private property. Wasabi Wallet is an easy-to-use privacy wallet that can support any amount of Bitcoin transactions. So go to wasabiwallet.io today to download this state-of-the-art wallet software. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Bitcoin Conference 2023. This 3-day event will be held May 18th through 20th in Miami Beach. This is going to be the biggest event of the year, as it always is. And the past 2 years in Miami have simply been amazing. Day 1's Industry Day. Days 2 and 3 are going to be open to general admission. And I'd say this is a great place to go and network with Bitcoiners or even look for a job. Just a really all-around great experience. There's a fantastic speaker lineup, including Michael Saylor, Zoltan Pozar, Lynn Alden, Alex Gladstein, many others. And last year, we did a 10 million sats giveaway for this event, and we're going to do it again this year. So to get discounted tickets and enter for a chance to win 10 million sats, go to b.tc/conference and use code BREEDLOVE. Now I'd like to tell you about our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes it simple to buy and secure your Bitcoin without wondering whether you're doing it right. Specifically, Casa provides a multi-key custody solution, which is by far the most secure way to custody your Bitcoin. Now, when I talk about Bitcoin being theft-proof money or inviolable private property, a multi-key custody model is exactly what I am talking about. Using multiple keys lets you maintain full control of your Bitcoin while also giving you redundancy in case you lose one of the keys. It's also the best way to secure your Bitcoin for inheritance planning purposes. So go to keys.casa, that's C-A-S-A, today to sign up and use discount code BREEDLOVE.
Well, Robert, I mean, I will admit to your audience that before Bitcoin, I really lived in a place of fear. I was fearful that I'll just say it, like I've always had the fear, or for a long time had the fear that I will wind up living under a bridge. I feel like nothing is secure. Like I feel like we are all one step away from being homeless, right? I feel so lucky to be here. I feel so lucky to be an American. And it is just pure effing luck that I was born here and I had parents and I got to go to college or got to live in a house or that is luck. And so that gratitude for my luck, it's like it's humbling, and it really makes me want to project this. I feel like I'm here to serve other people. I feel like I was put here on earth to serve others. And I try to approach my work I do approach my work that way. I want to interact with folks and figure out how I help them win.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why you work for Bitcoin.
And that's why I work for Bitcoin. And when you have Bitcoin, when you figure it out, and when you begin to store your energy in Bitcoin, right? And you can use the word wealth, but really wealth is just energy. When you begin to store your energy in Bitcoin, I mean, that feeling of I'm going to live under a bridge, it's gone.
Yeah.
I don't feel that at all anymore. It is complete. I mean, I used to say to my daughter, and she was like not happy at me. It's just like, oh my gosh, I don't, I'm not sure if I can live past 80. I'm not going to have enough money, right? Like I'm single. I mean, I'm working, but everything's getting more expensive. And she's like, Mom. And now I'm like, I'm going to live to be 150. And she's like, yes, you are. Right? And it changes us, right? It's changed how I eat.
Yeah.
It changes just my energy level. I'm like full of energy all the time. And, but it's that hope. It's hope that has replaced fear.
And it's not anything new in principle, right? Like, again, life, liberty, property. It's kind of the foundational ethos of the 1215 Magna Carta, which became the U.S. Constitution. Like, we know what we need to live free and to flourish, but we can't seem to construct anything that doesn't end up getting corrupted and betraying that end or betraying those principles. And finally, with Bitcoin, we have something that apparently cannot be corrupted and only serves those principles. So maybe that's why it's just so significant to us, right? It's consuming. Obviously, build your whole career around it and talk about it 24/7.
Talk about it 24/7. Yeah. Well, you mentioned liberty and property rights, and I've recently, in last year, had a meeting with an investor, and a few members of our team were meeting with a few members of his team, and this is a very high net worth individual. And my team is talking, and I'm not. I didn't come from the capital market side of the world. Like, that's not my forte. Raising money is not what they hired me for. So I'm just sort of like this fly on the wall. And the patriarch of this family, after about 15 minutes, he looks over at me and he says, you've kind of been quiet. I want to know what you think about this. And I really love what we're building at LevelField because I think that we're enabling folks to touch Bitcoin. We talked about that.
Right.
And when people store more of their energy or their wealth in Bitcoin, they need financial services, right? So they're going to want to use Bitcoin as collateral so that they can go buy a house, buy a car, buy a jet ski, go on vacation, go on a ski trip, right? So I said to him, all right, I've heard a lot about you, and now I've been sitting with you for 15 minutes. And in these 15 minutes, here's what I've gathered. Here's my perception. You've been in the natural resource business your whole life, wildly successful. You own, I won't dox him, an X commodity mine. You own a Y commodity mine. You own a ton of real estate in the most pristine areas of the United States, untouched areas of the United States. You love to hunt. You love to fish. You support the national parks. You'd rather be outside than anywhere else. You value time with your family over anyone else. And your whole life focuses around those things. So knowing these things about you, you are aligned with liberty, freedom, and private property. And if you are aligned with liberty, freedom, and private property, you are a Bitcoiner. That's what he did. He started laughing. And I said, so may I ask you, do you own Bitcoin? What do you think he said?
Probably no.
Yes.
Oh, he did.
We own Bitcoin.
Okay. So
right? Of course, it's a value alignment.
Yes.
It's not magic internet money. It's not garbage. It's not going away.
Right.
When you understand the ethos of Bitcoin, right? And you said so fantastically earlier that, say it again, about the Constitution.
It's my strong opinion that Bitcoin is more American than the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
Yeah. Same principles, different container, and it's a container that can't be broken as easily. And we're seeing the U.S. Constitution be broken over the past few years.
Right. So these are easy decisions. Do I want to own Bitcoin? Yes, I want to own freedom.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to own liberty.
Right. That's amazing. So was he bought into the ethos of Bitcoin prior to you saying that?
Yeah.
Or did he just own Bitcoin? Oh, he was. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good to hear, because I think I've thought similar things, right? People that are proponents of the American dream, let's say, and private property rights, but then decrying Bitcoin. I'm like, you have cognitive dissonance that you don't understand yet. You can't advocate for the American dream or private property rights and then be bearish Bitcoin. It doesn't reconcile. So I'm glad to hear someone at that level understanding what they own. Because a lot of people, I think, own Bitcoin just, it's the 1% flyer in their portfolio or whatever.
So on the private property front, I learned this, I guess, last week. I was writing something and I looked it up. Where is the U.S. on the index of private property around the world, so that you can look up by country and it ranks every country? I told you this before we started, but the U.S. is 13th.
Wow.
On the list. I would have thought we would have been like, I don't know, certainly within the top 5.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have full.
Yeah, I would have thought number 1 if I had to guess.
I think it's Norway.
I want to look into that to see what criteria they measure that by.
Well, and the property rights overall, the entire index overall has declined by 4% over the last year, I think, or maybe it was 18 months. But
yeah,
that's terrible.
Right.
I mean, that's invasive and threatening.
It's authoritarian.
It's authoritarian.
And just to be clear on a couple of things. So the lockdowns, that's a violation of private property, because you own yourself. Mm-hmm. If someone's going to tell you that you can't do certain things with yourself,
right,
that's a restriction of your private property. Fiat currency supply inflation, that's a violation of the property rights of savers. So if you're saving in dollars and the central bank is counterfeiting dollars, well, then you're having your property violated. So it's more than just what we might traditionally think of as, oh, that house is yours, well, here's a gun, now it's mine. It's not just that. There are these other more systemic and I would say insidious forms of property right violation taking place around the world at an accelerating pace the past couple of years. And I don't know what we can do to stop that without Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything. I mean, our friend Greg Foss talks about, and many talk about Bitcoin as being insurance against the fiat debasement, but really it's insurance against your property rights being removed, right, or being diminished.
Yeah, like you said, owning freedom or owning liberty. It's like if you own this thing that no one can touch, well, then to a certain extent you are untouchable. Obviously, it's not a force field. It's not going to protect you from all physical harm, but you do get you get a wider set of options when you're holding something that no one can steal from you.
Right.
And that's very important.
Well, and then you can walk across a border with.
Yeah.
Right? Literally walk across a border. Have you met Yomi Park?
No, we've talked though.
You have?
Yeah.
Did you interview her?
She's not been on the show yet, but we've talked offline. Yeah. I heard her on Peterson and was almost moved to tears. Her story's incredible.
Her story's incredible.
Yeah.
So I was with a group of women a couple of weeks ago in Houston educating about Bitcoin, we spent about 2 hours and I brought her name up and one of the women said, "Oh my gosh, she just spoke at my house in California." And I said, "Oh, amazing. Well, then you must know her Bitcoin journey." And she said, no, she never even mentioned Bitcoin one time. But this woman basically escapes, she's North Korean, sold into the sex slavery industry in China, and escapes with Bitcoin, right? She memorizes her 12 words, makes her way to New York, buys a phone, downloads a wallet, plugs in her seed words, all of her wealth.
Well,
is that right?
I don't even think I knew that part of her story,
Yeah.
actually. Wow.
I think,
Yeah.
I think she tells that. I think it's online at the Bitcoin conference from a year ago.
Oh, okay. Because she was a speaker there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I really hope I haven't made this up. No, I'm sure I haven't. I watched this.
Yeah. I've got to get her on the show.
You've got to get her
It's
on
an
the show.
incredible story. I have to ask you about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. So, but I mean, I always just think about when folks leave war-torn countries, kind of the World War II image of people evacuating from Germany in all of their clothes, carrying their candlesticks, suitcases are loaded down, right? And eventually that all becomes so much of a burden that they make it to their new place, or they don't make it at all, but they make it wherever they're going with very little, right? With Bitcoin, you have the ability to secure 100% of your wealth or your energy with 12 words, right? Nobody's taking it from you.
The implications are just truly mind-blowing. Like every time, to be able to compress that much energy into something that's, as Sailor always says, dematerialized, right, or intangible, non-corporeal, just pure information. It's staggering to think about the cascading effect that's going to have on the world.
Well, right. And, Greg Foss's famous example of the $900 trillion in total global assets, right? So he talks about how Bitcoin demonetizes other asset groups and people begin to shift allocations. But one step further, where I think it's really just like amazing, is that so few people own those assets. So the percentage of people that own those $900 trillion of assets, right, is this tiny little percentage.
Yeah.
And now they have an asset. They have something. They have private property that everyone on earth can own.
That's right. Yeah.
So, Greg's $900 trillion, like, where does Bitcoin price go? Well, if we go to 5% allocation, it's $2.14 million, right? 900 trillion, 5% of that's 45 trillion divided by 21 million,
right.
2.14, right? Like, the number is so much bigger.
Yeah.
Because people in North Korea can buy it. Who knows what the time frame is, but they will buy it. I firmly believe, we know everybody eventually buys Bitcoin.
That's the bet, right? It's like humans cannot stop printing money. Humans cannot stop tyrannizing one another. And Bitcoin's a solution to that, right? It lets people that are being tyrannized or having their wealth stolen through inflation, regulation, taxation, gives people an opt-out strategy. Okay, I've kept you a long time, but I have to ask you one last question. You said you've been reading Jason Lowery's book, Softwar. And I would love to just get your takes on that. I've also been reading it.
What page are you on?
As I told you offline, I cheated and skipped.
Oh, that's right, you did. Yeah.
Towards the end, middle and end. Like I do like a synoptic reading, so I go through the table of contents and see what I want to read about. Especially since I've talked to Jason for like 6 episodes on the show, I had a pretty good grip on his thesis. But there were it's really good. It's a really, really good book. So I had to ask you about your take on it so far.
Yeah, so I'm only on page 48. I think it's almost 400 pages, a little more than 380 or something.
Yeah,
and then there's the long kind of footnotes. And I too skipped and I read chapter 4 where he really talks about, and this is why, it's, first of all, it's so easy to read. I wasn't prepared for it to be an easy read. I am loving it. It takes me a long time to read because I flag and I note, and then I always have yellow notepads and I take notes. But of a broader perspective, I mean, there are a lot of people in my family that are in the military. A lot of my friends are in the military, have served. His point that Bitcoin, it can be used to protect us or as a weapon where no blood is shed really resonates. I have a cousin who was awarded the Silver Star. He was a sniper in Fallujah. He came back and he's alive and but had to have kidney transplants, right? Because his kidneys were absolutely shot after being in a hole for 13 days. Went in and fatigues, came out. He was all bleached white, right? The sweat just bleached all the color. So, to go back to the energy discussion, when I have no idea why Putin or any other country's leader would agree to price their oil in US dollars and then recycle that into US Treasury when our government currency is based on nothing.
Right.
And they then become at the mercy of the 12 guys that sit and affect monetary policy. That to me makes no sense at all. and I, you've talked about it, but I mean, this global sense of like, oh my gosh, I've got to get some to protect myself, right? Or global game theory playing out. I mean, just from a foreign exchange point of view, why would you price commodities or your homegrown goods in dollars when you can price in Bitcoin? Right? Just send me Bitcoin. I'll have it immediately. There's no intermediary. There's no cost, hardly. What? Why exactly? Like you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Is really the point. So the minute that countries start adopting it for their global trade, like off to the races. It's back to Jason. I mean, it's hugely frustrating to me that the U.S. has not seen this. I was with one of the founders of a big bank in Switzerland that offers crypto broadly, but he is a hardcore Bitcoiner. And their government was cooperative, right? Like cooperative. Like, yes, we realize this is the future. Okay, let's figure out how to all work together. This only strengthens us as a nation. And yet we have these folks who I think have lost their way.
That because they were the last to go off the gold standard too, I'm pretty sure. You said Switzerland, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it makes sense maybe that they're the first to embrace hard money, a new hard money,
right?
Let's say. Fascinating to see where we're headed.
To say the least.
Game theory, that is the key. I think if you really start to look at Bitcoin through that game theory lens, that's when I realized it was unstoppable. I'm like, it just incentivizes everyone to contribute to the success and proliferation of its network. How do you stop that? Like, everyone in the world is an individual self-interested actor. Maybe they don't understand how Bitcoin benefits them, but at some point they will.
Yeah. One of my favorite articles is Alex Gladstein's or his interview. He talks about it a lot, that Bitcoin is the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Right. Because as your point, like when the number goes higher, because number go up, freedom go up.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a great place to stop it.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you so much for doing this. Where can people find you on the internet?
I'm super hard to find on the internet. For better or worse, you can find me on Twitter. I think it's at Lisa_Hough, tough, but with an H.
Yeah.
And I think I'm on LinkedIn. After this week, I'm going to be on Nostr. Are you on Nostr?
Not yet. I've accepted that it's a big deal and I should do that now. So it's on the list.
I feel so much better about myself.
Yeah. I like to move slowly. I was quick to jump on the Mastodon thing, and then that didn't go anywhere. So I decided to slow roll this one.
I will admit I'm a late adopter. So on that scale of early adopter, mid adopter, late adopter, I think I was the last person I know to have a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to get on Nostr. It sounds like they're having a whole lot of fun over there.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of the Bitcoin signals shifting over there too. So.
I will say, if anybody reaches out to me on social media, I do answer everything. And what I really love is when someone calls and says, I want to work in Bitcoin. Do you have a few minutes? I always have 15 minutes for somebody that wants to work in Bitcoin.
Awesome.
We'll absolutely set up time to talk, because, as the number of miners gets on the network and strengthens the network, as the number of people that participate in our ecosystem, forget the monetary value of Bitcoin. This humility that Bitcoin brings to the world, and this sense of calm and hope and peace, the more of us that join this revolution, I think the better the energy, the better we are going forward, right? You have a child, I have a child. Like, we're truly building something that's a more peaceful place.
Yeah, amen for that. Yes, for the kids, right? We can't repeat this authoritarianism cycle anymore. Like, it's time to break out of it and let people be free. So, Lisa, thanks again.
Thank you.